Hello buddies, we are visit the most dangerous prison in London, the Clink Prison Museum. There was very harsh torture here.
The building is not the original Clink prison, which is long gone, although it is on the site and does contain a part of the prison wall from the 17th to 18th century. The museum tells the story of the Clink, the most notorious of medieval prisons in the country, and the one which lent its name to all future prisons which are informally known as the Clink. In darkened rooms with some grisly displays of the terrible conditions the prisoners lived in, their tortures and suffering, and against a backdrop of occasional whimpering and screams, the museum gives a vivid depiction of life for the inmates. Torture devices line the walls which you can handle and try on, and there are display cases with eclectic finds of items from the 900 years of life within the walls. The Clink is in the borough of Southwark, one of the oldest parts of London, originally settled by the Romans and again by the Saxons. From 1149 the area was the London home of the Bishop of Winchester, Henry of Blois, who was also brother to King Stephen. It was awarded the status of liberty, i.e. outside the jurisdiction of the authorities, and so was controlled by the notoriously corrupt bishops. The estate was a huge complex of buildings which included stables, a tennis court, ponds, and a prison. With about 70 acres of land around Winchester Palace, they took proceeds from all commercial activity that took place in the Liberty, and were allowed to license brothels and prostitutes, bull and bear baiting, and to house theatres, all of which were unlawful in other parts of the city. Prostitution was very commonplace in the area, the bishops taking a cut of their income. The ladies were known as the Winchester geese because of the loud screeching they did to attract custom. The Clink, 13th to 16th century. The prison started out as jail cells within the Winchester Palace complex, and the bishops could imprison a wide range of people from local criminals, heretics to enemies of the king. It was not a prison in the modern sense of the word, as people actually had to pay to be kept and fed there, meaning the wealthy had better conditions than others, who were forced to beg for food at the grates of their cells. The gaolers were underpaid and supplemented their income by taking money from the prisoners, hiring out beds, selling food, offering lighter chains, and allowing them outside to work and beg. By the 14th century, inmates at the Clink were living in terrible conditions. It flooded regularly, and they often ended up waist-deep in raw sewage and rats. Disease was rife with dysentery, typhoid, and malaria, all common ailments. There was no sanitation facilities, and they would just all use the corner of the room. Many innocent people died inside whilst awaiting their trial. Winchester Palace was raided by rioters in 1450, with the clerics being killed, prisoners released, and the Clink burnt to the ground. Catholic priests would still manage to worship inside the confines of the Clink. It was rebuilt, and by the 16th century it held mainly heretics, the religious fervor of the times, and the fact that the accepted religion changed with whoever was monarch meant that a lot of people were labeled as heretics. The gaolers would turn a blind eye for the right sum, and there was a secret chapel in the Clink where two famous inmates, Fathers John Gerard and William Weston, would hold mass for other Catholics. They would buy items such as oranges from the gaolers, and used orange juice as invisible ink to communicate with the outside world. Torture was commonplace in medieval times, and the Clink was no exception. In fact, one prisoner, a Catholic priest called Saxy, hanged himself inside as he was so afraid of being tortured. Displays include an execution block dripping with blood, a rack, scavenger's daughter, iron boot, ball and chain, bridles, a chastity belt, and a gibbet, complete with a rotting corpse and a crow sitting on top clutching an eyeball in its beak. Executions were also common in the Clink, mainly by hanging, as beheading was saved for the condemned with high status, but being boiled to death was also in use, introduced by Henry VIII, and heretics were burnt at the stake. There are some grisly descriptions of executions on the information boards on the walls. The Rat Man. There is a display of the Rat Man, Henry Bronca, who was a long-term resident from 1670. Imprisoned for debt, he was unable to pay his way out of the Clink and remained there until he was released around 1712. He would feed the rats on rubbish such as fat, parchment, leather and feces, then kill the rat and eat it once it was fat and juicy. Although it sounds horrible, it was probably how he survived there for so long. There are some impressive objects in the display cases, such as Oliver Cromwell's death mask, a lace glove worn by Charles I at his christening, pewter spoon from 1600, a 17th century wooden snuff box with a detail depicted of the gunpowder plot amongst other objects. Some are on loan from other museums, others have been found by mudlarkers, people who search the muddy river banks of the Thames for treasures from its long history. The prison was mainly used as a debtor's prison in its later years, the buildings crumbling and ruinous, until it burned down in 1780 and was never rebuilt.
Thank you for watching these videos. We will be back tomorrow with the transport videos. Thank you for watching. See you soon. Goodbye.